What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, we've been working on the GTO right here behind me. Last time we worked on getting the intercooler piping finished up. We've got our new Black Sheep Industries blow-off valve on there, and we got pretty much all the intercooler piping finished up here. Still waiting on an aluminum 90 that we can fit in right there, but everything else is pretty much done. Super happy with how all of that came out, especially for learning how to TIG weld while we were working on that project. So super happy with that. But today's project is going to be trying to make a skid plate for under this thing. If you guys haven't seen under the GTOs before, they're pretty exposed. A lot of them from the factory came with a skid plate that helped shield all of that. But since we picked this one up as a roller, ours did not come with anything. So we're going to go ahead and try to mock something up and make something fit in there that we are happy with. We're going to be using aluminum, but to get everything fit and designed how we want it, we went ahead and picked up some cardboard at Home Depot and just some cheap tape. And then obviously we're going to need a Sharpie, but we're going to mock everything up and get everything to fit how we'd like it to fit. And then we'll take some scrap sheets of aluminum that we have out back. If we don't have a piece that's big enough, I'll weld it together, clean it up, and then we can trace out our cardboard template and then cut it out and start figuring out how we can mount it in the car. If you guys are new to the channel and you want to see more on the GTO, you can go back on the GTO playlist. We've got everything on there from when we set the engine and transmission in to the Pro Charger, suspension stuff. Anything you guys might want to see for the GTO, you can find on the channel. Also, if you're new, don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell. That way you get notified anytime we put out a video with the GTO, the Duramax, or the Hellcat. Let's get right into today's video. Alright guys, so now that we got through the intro, let's go ahead and crawl under the car. I'll show you guys roughly what we're trying to do, and then we will start cutting some stuff out of cardboard, maybe make a sketch real quick with some measurements, and start mocking this thing up so that we can get to work with some aluminum. Alright guys, so here is basically the plan. So we've got a bolt hole here, we've got one over here, and then we've got two back here. These are for the factory skid plate, I believe. So what my thought process is we can come right along the back over here behind these bolt holes. Behind these bolt holes, come over and then follow this up to about here. And then we can start heading out with it and come over somewhere in here beyond this bolt hole. And then do the same thing on this side, come up, and then start tapering over, and then just come up to maybe, I don't know, we might bring it right up to the edge of this, and then straight across. And then that leaves us the opportunity in the future, if we want to, we can make another piece to maybe come off of that and down a little bit, then out, and then up to maybe to this thing. Then it'll keep the intercooler piping somewhat protected, and it'll just keep everything contained. So let's go ahead and take some measurements and head over to the bench. Alright guys, so this is a very primitive drawing that I just drew out here as a sketch of what we're trying to do. So you've got the square is our subframe, and then you've got the control arms, and I threw some struts in there just to help you guys visualize it. And then this is the front of the car, this is the rear, driver side, passenger side, and then this is obviously the skid plate. Now back here at the rear of the vehicle, we're going to start with it at a width of 15 inches, and then it's going to have a leg on this side that's 8 inches, this side that's going to be 10 inches, and those will maintain that 15-inch width, and then they will taper off to our 27-inch width that we're going to use up front. Like I said, I did two different length legs here just to follow the style of the subframe and how the engine's sitting and whatnot, but we might hold off on doing that until we get it under the car and see how it actually fits. We might end up make these match, but I'm not positive yet. So to start out with the cardboard, we're just going to cut a big square that's going to be 27 inches, which is our widest point, and then our combined length is going to be 18.5 inches. So we'll just do a square that's 27 by 18.5. So let's get that cut out, start mocking it up under the car, and see what we want to do with the legs and a couple other things. Alright guys, so now we've got our piece that we can work with. We'll go ahead and make some measurements, make some marks, and then start getting this thing cut out. Alright guys, so this is basically what we've came up with for a template. You can see the crease right there. It's going to be on a very slight angle up, and then this piece right here is going to be pretty close to a 90-degree angle. It's hard to tell with the cardboard right now, but I cut everything so that we could lay it perfectly flat for now, so that we can grab our scrap piece of aluminum, which is over here, and we're going to turn this into our skid plate. So we'll use our template that we made over here out of the cardboard, and we will place it onto that aluminum. I'll trace it all out, and then I haven't decided what I'm going to cut it with yet. Not sure if I want to get the circular saw out or if I'm just going to go ahead and use the jigsaw, but we'll figure that out when we get there. So let's go ahead and get this thing traced out. Alright guys, so here is a first look at our bare skid plate. We've got it cut out here. Obviously, I've still got to do some cleaning up around some edges, round a few things off. I think I'm going to round off the back corners and probably these corners too. Then we've got to put a bend up here, a bend right about here, maybe a little bit before it, and a couple other things. We will probably end up polishing this, since this aluminum will clean up. I've used it for other things and it shines up nice. Or worst case, we could always spray it black. But for right now, I think I'm going to start cleaning some edges up where I can and decide what we want to do next. So let's go ahead and get this thing cleaned up. Alright guys, so as you can see, we've got our sheet metal brake set up here. If you guys want to see what brand it is and what modifications we've had to do, as well as a review video on it, make sure to stay tuned and subscribe to the channel. We'll be putting that video out shortly after the skid plate video is done. So we've got our template here. We went under the car with it, and I've decided that we want to put a slight bend in it right here where this crease is. It's not going to be a super sharp bend, just something like that to make it fit nice and flush to the bottom of the car. So we're going to go ahead and measure from here to here, and then we'll make a mark on each side of our aluminum and then draw a line across. We'll jig it up in the brake and get this thing bent. Alright guys, so you've seen the cardboard template. Well, now we've got the aluminum to match it. So it came out pretty good. If you set our template under the aluminum that we just made, comes out pretty close to perfect. Our bend's in the same spot and everything. Super happy with how close we got it to that template. But now the difficult part is going to be getting it lined up under here to find those bolt holes, the ones that are right here and the ones in the back. So we're going to try to use the cardboard template that we made and a pick and go up through the cardboard to find the holes. And then once we find the holes on the cardboard, we can flip our aluminum skid plate over, set this on here like so, and then hopefully transfer the holes from the cardboard to our template, just like we've been doing this whole time. As you guys seen, we got it bent up in the brake. That was quite a bit of a fiasco. If you guys want to see how the brake did, you can check out the other video where we did a review on that thing. But we got it done, and that's all that matters. So we're going to go ahead and hold this thing up under here and try to get these holes marked so that we can start making spacers and get some bolts in this thing, and then decide if we're going to polish it or paint it. So let's get under the car and get this thing mocked up. Alright guys, you can see I got one bolt already holding it in. So now I'm just going to show you how I did that and do it to the other side. Watch your arm, I don't want to crush you. It's basically a guessing game the way I'm doing it. You could totally take measurements from each axis, I don't know what you'd call it, from each side, and figure it out that way. But I'm just trying to do it by guessing here. Where is it? Alright. Of course, the one I didn't film first try, this one was a second try, but that's alright. That's why we're doing this to our template and not to our final piece. So I found that one. Now I'm just going to make the hole a little bigger. Double check we're good. I'm going to take my other bolt. Just thread it in for now just to hold our template in place. Now at least it's held up for us so that we can work on getting everything out set where we want it. So now we've just got to do the same thing that we did there to all the other bolts on the skid plate, and then we can start getting ready to transfer it over to the aluminum. Alright guys, you can see on our template here, we've got all 4 bolts marked in there and set in, just holding our cardboard up. And so far I'm pretty happy with it. I think it came out pretty sweet so far. So now all we got to do is the hard part of transferring it over to the aluminum and making sure that they're all right. We'll probably check one and then hold it up there, and once we know everything's going good, we'll mark them and pop it in the aluminum and set the aluminum skid plate on here and make sure everything fits how we want. So super happy with how it's looking so far.
You did good. Probably too early. Spun a little bit in the middle, but it wasn't anything kind of feather.
Alright guys, so you see we've got our skid plate here, and it came out pretty good. We've got all of our mounting bolt holes done. When you bolt this thing up to the car, this part sits nice and flush up against the front cradle, but because we put this angle in here for air and just for looks and to cover the bottom of the car the best we could, now when you try to put a bolt in here, it doesn't sit flush. It's going to be crooked and just not sit right. And we also have a little bit of a gap here, so I had some aluminum tubing laying around that we decided to use to make some spacers. But you can see with this, if I just cut off a spacer that's flat, we're still going to have the issue with the angle because you're just exaggerating that angle up higher. So what I decided to do was make a couple spacers, and I used my angle gauge, figured out what angle this was, and then set up the bandsaw, and we cut the spacers on an angle on one side and flush on the other. So now we can set them like so, and it'll give us a nice flat surface for this to bolt up to the bottom of the car. And then on the other side where the bolt head is going to be, it would be the same deal. It would be kind of crooked and all jacked up. So I took another piece of aluminum and just cut it down super thin with that same angle on it, so that now the bolt can go up against this. This will be under the skid plate like so, and give you a nice flat surface for the bolt to sandwich the skid plate between this spacer, and then tightly up against the cross member. So now I think we're gonna go ahead and set up the prime weld 225 and tack weld the bigger spacers onto the skid plate right here. I think I'm just gonna tack them on, because if we don't, I'm afraid that they're gonna be moving around and everything else when we're trying to run the bolt up and get everything tight and set in place. So I figured we might as well go ahead and try to tack them on. So let's head over to the welding table and tack these things on. Alright guys, so we got our spacers welded on. Not absolutely gorgeous. If I was to do it again, I would make sure that these are the same type of aluminum, same alloy or whatever. It didn't want to weld together all that well, but we did get it. I was going to just tack it in a couple spots, enough to hold it, but I ended up going all the way around it, and it looks half decent. I'm pretty happy with it. So now we can go ahead and take this thing over to the car, set it on, and do some final fitment, make sure everything's still good to go after welding on it, and then we can finally decide if we want to polish this thing or spray it black. Alright guys, so you can see we got the skid plate back off the car here. I just wanted to give you guys a quick look at what we're going to be using for paint. So I went with the Transtar brand, the self-etching 1K gray primer, the 2-in-1 trim black gloss black finish, and then the Jammin acrylic clear. Like I said, this is a Transtar brand. You can see the part numbers on the bottles right there. I like using the Transtar stuff. It is a lot more expensive than traditional like Rust-Oleum or other rattle can sprays, but we get it local at our West Springfield Auto Parts, and like I said, it's just a lot better overall finish. I think when we're done with this thing, it's gonna look a lot more professional than when we just use like a Rust-Oleum spray. So that's what we decided to go with. Figured I'd show you guys. So let's go ahead and start getting this thing prepped and start spraying it. Alright guys, so you can see here we've got the skid plate. I cleaned it all up, sanded it with the DA a little bit, and just tried to get it nice and smooth, get any gouges or anything out of it from when we made it. You can see we've got some all thread here with some nuts and washers. I'll show you guys what we're going to use those for when we get out to the carport. We're going to be using the carport as our spray booth. So let's go ahead and get this thing out there, and I'll show you guys what we're going to do from there. Alright guys, so you see we've got these strings ran here hanging from the ceiling, and then you can see the bolts I have with the washers. It's actually all thread, and what we're going to do is we're just going to take one of the loops that I've made. Sorry about the background noise, we've got the heater going. We're just going to take one of those loops that I made and put it between the two washers on the all thread on each side. We're going to do the same thing on this one here. And then we've got it hung pretty decent. Just gonna center this up a little bit better here, like so. And now we can paint the whole thing and hopefully avoid the string or anything leaving marks. So let's go ahead and get the spray paint and start painting this thing. Alright guys, so we're gonna be using the Transtar 6193 1K primer. We're gonna go ahead and hit this thing. I'm gonna do 2 little coats, like medium-ish I guess. And then we'll give it probably 5 minutes in between each coat. And then I'll wait about an hour for it to dry, and then we'll start hitting it with the top coat stuff. So let's see how this is gonna turn out. Alright guys, so the primer has dried for an hour now, so we're going to go ahead and hit it with the gloss black, the Transtar 4663. So let's go ahead, we're going to hit it with probably 2 or 3 light coats, giving it about 3 to 5 minutes in between, and then we'll let that dry for an hour, and then we can hit it with clear. Alright guys, 3rd coat of color, and then we'll let it sit for an hour and dry. Alright guys, coat number 3 is going on. Alright guys, so we let this thing sit and cure for a while. I think it came out really good. I think the last clear coat there really helped to bring out some of the gloss, especially for some spray cans. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I went ahead and set some of the hardware on there just so you guys could get a peek at it before we put it on the car. I think it looks really nice being gloss black with the stainless hardware. Really happy all the way around with how this thing turned out. So let's head on over to the car and see what it's going to look like when we bolt it up underneath there. Alright guys, there you have it. There is our finished product. I think it came out pretty good and looks really good with that stainless hardware. Super happy with how we were able to get those bends to line up and get everything to fit using the factory bolt holes. That was a huge plus for me. I really like that we were able to use those. I also like how we were able to get the bends pretty evenly across. It worked out really well, and the paint came out pretty decent for using a spray can. So as always guys, I appreciate you for checking out the video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell. That way you get notified anytime we put out a video with the GTO, the Duramax, or the Hellcat, and we will catch you on the next one.